Have you heard the name Joanne Robinson? Most people have not, but you are about to. Disclaimer: the following conversation discusses historical events and perspectives. It is not intended to promote any ideology, and interpretations may differ. Today, I will be interviewing you as if you are Joanne Robinson. Are you ready for that discussion?
I'm ready. Let's step into the shoes of Joanne Robinson. Ask away, and we'll dive into her story and the pivotal role she played in history.
The first category: early life, education, and political awareness. How did your upbringing and education shape your understanding of racial injustice?
Growing up in a segregated world, I saw early on how unfair the systems were. My family instilled in me the value of education as a tool for change. When I became a teacher and saw firsthand how my students were limited by these racial barriers, my awareness deepened. I knew we couldn't accept it, and that understanding lit the path toward action, especially during the Montgomery Bus Boycott.
How did you first recognize the power of organization and strategy over spontaneity?
I realized that while individual acts of resistance were courageous, they often faded without lasting change. When I joined the Women's Political Council, I saw how planning, communication, and unified strategy could amplify our voices. It was clear that thoughtful organization could mobilize a community and sustain a movement. That's how we orchestrated the boycott so effectively.
Why did education become both your profession and your platform for change?
Education was my calling because it was one of the few avenues where I could empower others directly. In the classroom, I not only taught academics, but also instilled pride, awareness, and hope. I knew that well informed, educated individuals could challenge injustice. So education became both my livelihood and my way of sparking lasting societal transformation.
Let's move to the next category: Montgomery and the everyday reality of segregation. What were the daily realities of riding segregated buses in Montgomery?
Every day, black passengers were forced to enter buses from the front to pay, then exit and re enter from the back. We often stood even if seats in the white section were empty. There was constant fear of humiliation or being thrown off for the smallest perceived slight. It wasn't just uncomfortable. It was a daily reminder that we were seen as second-class citizens in our own city.
How did repeated indignities push you towards organized resistance?
Each indignity built a reservoir of resolve. When you face daily humiliation, being told to move or having a driver leave you behind after you paid, you realize dignity can't wait. The breaking point came when I saw that collective action, like planning a bus boycott, could turn those daily indignities into a catalyst for change.
Why were black women often the first to recognize the urgency of action?
Black women bore the brunt of segregation's daily realities, from working as domestic workers to relying on public transportation every day. We felt injustice personally, but also saw its impact on our families. We were often the caretakers, the providers, and the backbone of the community. When survival and dignity were at stake, we couldn't afford to wait for others to act. So we became the first to say, it's time.
Let's move to the next category: Women's Political Council and Strategic Leadership. How did the Women's Political Council prepare long before the boycott began?
Long before the boycott, we were laying the groundwork. We gathered data on complaints, documented abuses on buses, and organized quietly, knowing the day would come. We held meetings, encouraged self respect, and even warned officials that action could come if they didn't address injustices. When Rosa Parks was arrested, we were ready. That preparation made the overnight organization of the boycott possible.
Why was quiet planning just as important as public protest?
Quiet planning gave us structure and resilience. Without it, public protest might have been chaotic or short lived. Quiet preparation meant we had carpools ready, leaders identified, and a clear plan. It allowed us to be strategic, not just reactive. When the moment came, we didn't just have outrage, we had a sustainable, organized movement ready to endure for over a year.
What risks did you and other women take behind the scenes?
We risked our livelihoods and safety. I had my car vandalized and lived under constant threat. The women who printed leaflets risked their jobs. We met in secret, knowing any exposure could lead to arrests or worse. Despite those risks, we knew change required sacrifice, and we were willing to face the danger if it meant breaking the chains of segregation.
Let's move to the next category, the Montgomery Bus Boycott. What happened the night the decision was made to print and distribute the bus boycott flyers?
The night Rosa Parks was arrested, I worked into the early hours, typing thousands of flyers. With other women's political council members, we spread the word across Montgomery. By dawn, thousands of leaflets were in churches, schools, and neighborhoods. That night, a spontaneous moment turned into a coordinated movement. It was swift, focused, and ready to ignite change that Monday.
How did logistics, speed, and secrecy determine the boycott's success?
The boycott's success hinged on everyone knowing the plan immediately and acting as one. We had no time for hesitation. By Monday, the community knew the strategy: walk, carpool, but don't ride the buses. The secrecy shielded us from sabotage, and the speed meant momentum never faltered. This unity from day one made it impossible to ignore or suppress.
Why was women's leadership essential in sustaining the movement?
Women were deeply embedded in every layer of the community. We had networks in churches, schools, and homes. We knew how to organize, uplift, and sustain morale. When the boycott faced pressure, it was often women who ensured daily logistics kept going. Carpools running, spirits lifted. Our leadership wasn't just essential, it was the backbone.
Let's move to the next category, gender, visibility, and historical erasure. Why do you think women's strategic roles were minimized in movement narratives?
In many historical narratives, men were often centered as the public face of leadership. Women's contributions were behind the scenes, seen as support rather than leadership. Gender norms downplayed our strategic roles, despite the fact that we were key organizers. Our stories were often erased or diminished in favor of a narrative that fit traditional expectations.
How did being a black woman affect how your leadership was recognized?
As a black woman, my leadership was doubly marginalized. Being black meant fighting racial discrimination, while being a woman meant my leadership was often unseen or undervalued. The intersection meant that even when we led, history might not record it. Yet that didn't stop us. We led because we had to, knowing the recognition might only come later.
What is lost when organizers are erased from history?
When organizers are erased, we lose the full truth of how change happens. We miss the strategies, the collective power, and the crucial roles of those often overlooked. It distorts future movements, making it seem like progress is made only by a few. By remembering everyone, especially women, we ensure future generations know the power of collective action, and that anyone can lead.
Let's move to the next category, courage, consequences, and moral strength. What personal sacrifices did leadership demand of you?
Leadership demanded that I put my personal safety and comfort aside. I faced threats, harassment, and fear of losing my job. There were nights of anxiety, worrying about what might happen to me or those around me. It meant working tirelessly without recognition, knowing I might never see the full fruits of the labor. But the cause, justice and equality, was worth every sacrifice.
How did fear coexist with resolve during the boycott?
Fear was constant. We knew every day could bring retaliation, violence, arrests, or worse. But resolve came from knowing why we were doing this. Every indignity we had endured strengthened our determination. Fear was there, but it never outweighed the vision of justice we were building. Courage meant acting despite the fear, because the future we envisioned mattered more than the risks we faced.
Why was discipline more powerful than chaos and resistance?
Discipline ensured we stayed united and focused. Chaos could have splintered us, but discipline, coordinated carpools, nonviolence, and consistent messaging gave the movement strength. It built trust and made our efforts impossible to dismiss. Chaos might have sparked brief attention, but discipline ensured we sustained pressure for over a year. That discipline turned resistance into lasting change.
Legacy, truth, and lessons forward. How should future generations understand the role of planning in social change?
Future generations should know that change is rarely spontaneous. Planning is the foundation. It's the meetings, the organizing, the strategy before the action. Social change is sustained by those who quietly build structure behind the scenes. Without planning, movements may falter. They should recognize that careful, thoughtful preparation is what turns ideals into lasting change.
What lessons does your life offer about leadership without spotlight?
It shows that leadership isn't about being in front. It's about doing the work, even when unseen. Leadership is persistence, taking steps no one may applaud, but everyone benefits from. It's about integrity, sacrifice, and creating conditions where others can rise. Leadership without spotlight is lasting leadership, one that transforms lives even if history forgets your name.
If history remembers one truth about you, what should it be?
I'd want history to remember that even without a spotlight, I helped ignite a movement through organization, courage, and belief in collective power. The truth is, lasting change often begins quietly, with determination, planning, and the unwavering belief that justice is worth every step.
These are the last three questions. Who organized the Montgomery Bus Boycott before the world noticed?
It was the Black women of Montgomery, especially the Women's Political Council. We organized in living rooms, churches, and classrooms long before the world noticed. We planned, we strategized, and when the time came, we were ready to mobilize.
Why doesn't your name appear as often as it should?
It's because history often favors the public faces, not the strategists behind the scenes. As a Black woman, my work was often labeled as supporting rather than leading. But whether or not my name appears, the impact of the work stands, and I know the movement couldn't have happened without that foundation.
How did Black women quietly engineer one of America's most powerful protests?
We did it by building networks in our communities, meeting, planning, and preparing long before the spark. We documented injustices, communicated in secret, and mobilized overnight. Our determination, organization, and collective strength engineered a protest that shook the nation, all without the need for fame or recognition.
Okay, so that's the video. Tell me your thoughts about the video in the comments. Also, put those questions in the comments you feel that I should have asked, that I didn't ask. I would love to do a part 2 on Joanne Robinson. Also, put those names in the comments. Those names represent the people that you want me to do videos on next. Be sure to like, share, watch more videos, and subscribe to the channel.